One thing we learned for sure this week, regardless of whether Donald Trump is ever convicted of a crime, is that Republicans don't give a damn about national security or classified information. It's all just a partisan game for them. I mean, just compare and contrast how they reacted to Hillary Clinton's email scandal and her mishandling of classified information back in 2016 during an election campaign, and how they've reacted to the indictment of Donald Trump on 31 counts of violating the Espionage Act of willful retention of classified information. Senator Marco Rubio of Florida had already dismissed Trump's mishandling of top-secret documents last year in the wake of the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago as simply a storage issue. And on Thursday, he told a conservative media outlet the harm, whatever harm was created by documents being stored, be they in Biden's garage or Mar-a-Lago or wherever, is far outweighed by the harm of bringing this indictment. That's weird, because in 2016, this is what Rubio said about harm in the context of Hillary Clinton and classified documents. Quote, "There is simply no excuse for Hillary Clinton's decision to set up a home-cooked email system which left sensitive and classified national security information vulnerable to theft and exploitation by America's enemies. Her actions were grossly negligent, damaged national security, and put lives at risk." Then there's Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who called the indictment of Trump an assault on democracy, garbage, a political attack. And yet, when it came to Hillary Clinton, as The Guardian reported, in April of 2016, Cruz fired up the crowd with a vow to keep the Democratic frontrunner from the White House and possibly behind bars. "I've got slightly different government housing in mind for her," he said. Oh, and the crowd at that Cruz rally in California snapped up Hillary for prison badges after the event. How about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? He didn't think Trump did anything wrong and instead tweeted on Thursday, in response to the indictment, "The weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to a free society." And yet a much younger Congressman DeSantis was a member of the then GOP-led House Oversight Committee in 2016, which held a hearing to slam then FBI Chief James Comey for not bringing charges against Hillary Clinton. If information that is classified as top secret is compromised that could damage our national security, correct? DeSantis asked at that hearing. American lives are at stake in some instances. A lot of people are upset that there are no consequences for Mrs. Clinton. See, DeSantis wanted consequences for Clinton, but not now for Trump. Meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy, GOP House Speaker, tweeted on Thursday that it was a dark day for America and, quote, "I and every American who believes in the rule of law stand with President Trump against this grave injustice." And yet, on the day the FBI said that there would be no charges against Hillary Clinton over her emails, July 5th, 2016, Kevin McCarthy issued this statement, quote, "Every investigation thus far makes one conclusion abundantly clear. Secretary Clinton's fundamental lack of judgment and wanton disregard for protecting and keeping information confidential raises continued questions about the exposure of our nation's diplomatic and national security secrets." They clutched their pearls in 2016. They expressed faux outrage over classified information. They screamed about national security, and they insisted Hillary Clinton be indicted, be locked up. And now when Donald Trump is actually indicted, accused of doing things with our nation's secrets that are 100 times worse than anything Hillary Clinton was accused of, they don't care. They just stand with Trump. Oh, GOP, hypocrisy be thy name.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz on the Monday. Yes, we're still breaking down everything to do with Trump's indictment tomorrow on federal charges regarding the Mar-a-Lago documents. But we do have some other things to discuss really quickly. So let's jump right into it. Here is some additional information regarding the Stand Your Ground murderer.
Susan Louise Lorenz, a white woman who reportedly became upset that children were playing near her property on June 2nd. When Susan reportedly yelled racial slurs at the children and threw a pair of skates at them, striking one of them, Ajika A.J. Owens knocked on Susan's front door just to be shot through the door by Susan. Ajike died soon after in front of the children, in which one of the children, which was Ajike's, reportedly blamed himself for what happened. Another child blamed themselves reportedly for not being able to resuscitate Ajike. What media isn't addressing is the racial violence happening prior to this, with Susan yelling racial slurs at black children, which you'll find extremely similar to Brian Kielberg, a white man reportedly yelling racial slurs before killing Arnell A.J. Stewart, a black man. Back to Ajike, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that wouldn't confront the person calling their children racial slurs and then throwing a pair of skates at them. Lastly, it took 4 days for law enforcement to arrest Susan, and she was arrested on charges of manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, battery, and 2 counts of assault. Notice, none of those things I said was the word murder. And yes, now would be the time to spread the news of this story, because we know had this not gotten the publicity it has already gotten, Susan might still be free.
Absolutely, because let's not forget the case that we discussed last week in a stand your ground state, but since it was a black man that shot, immediate trial. And he had people show up on video attempting to cause harm to him. They received a text telling them to come shoot up his home, but he stood trial. Now let's move on to this whole child labor laws debacle.
You cannot make these headlines up. M. Night Shyamalan, Jordan Peele, they got nothing. Black Mirror's got nothing on the things that are actually happening in this country right now. Lawmakers propose loosening child labor laws to fill the worker shortage and are embracing legislation to let children work in more hazardous occupations. And this is not picking on Republicans. These rollbacks are exclusively happening in Republican-led legislatures. And I know I've got a decent-sized conservative audience, so I am asking you to please speak to your legislators and tell them that you don't want this. I cannot imagine that you guys want child labor laws rolled back. They're not going to listen to me, so I need you to go and talk to your party leaders and say, whoa, 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 we don't want kids working in meat processing plants. We don't want kids working in bars. It's not even legal for you to be in a bar unless you're 21, and now we're going to have 14-year-olds serving drinks in Wisconsin? 14-year-olds do not belong at the bar. When I grew up, you couldn't even sit at the bar unless you were over 18. Intoxicated people and teenagers do not mix. And in Iowa, there's a bill pending right now that would allow children to work in meat processing plants. It would even give people under 16 a special exemption to use highways to get to work. I want you to think about 13 and 14-year-olds driving on highways. Listen, I had a job at 12. I loved working as a kid. I understand family business and what it means to contribute to your family business. This is not that. This isn't about keeping kids from earning a living or understanding the value of a dollar. It's about stopping legislatures from using children to fill the jobs that are meant for adults. Adults that should be properly trained to do those jobs. Adults that should be getting a fair wage and health benefits and a 401k sometimes to do these jobs. Beyond the obvious dangers to kids, it's being reported that employers want to hire children so that they can do just that. They can pay them less, they don't have to worry about their health benefits. Children are far less likely to file complaints with HR and are far less likely to unionize. That's bleak, my guy. Adults in power need to be looking out for the safety of kids, period. And if this kind of stuff is happening in your state or your county, it's not too late to push back. And again, to my Republican followers, this is really on you guys because this is your party leadership and they are not going to listen to me. They are going to listen to you, though. Protect the kids in your districts, protect the kids in your neighborhoods, protect the kids in your family, and protect the job security of adults who should be doing the work of construction, of meat packing, of bartending. Protect the right to unionize. You only get to be a kid once. Scoop an ice cream, newspaper route, all for it. We know the effect that construction has on your body. We know that that is hard labor. That's hard work. They can start those jobs in skilled labor at 18. Maybe even have a really great mentor like you to help them along. But in the meanwhile, please push back against these child labor rollbacks.
Okay, coming from Vox.com, the Republican push to weaken child labor laws explained. It's not just about a labor shortage. Earlier this week, Republican state lawmakers in Wisconsin circulated a new bill that would allow workers as young as 14 years old to serve alcohol in bars and restaurants, down from the state's current age minimum of 18 years old. The legislative proposal creates a simple solution to workforce staffing issues, said the Republican bill sponsors in a memo they circulated to colleagues on Monday. Wisconsin is not the only state looking to loosen labor laws affecting minors, and over the last few months, there have been Republican-led bills in states like Arkansas, Ohio, and Iowa aimed at making it easier for teenagers excuse me, to work in more jobs and for more hours in the day. Some labor experts say that the proposed changes pose little threat to workplace safety, but they've overlapped with shocking exposés in the New York Times and Washington Post that uncovered exploited migrant children working illegally in American jobs. On Tuesday, the U.S. Labor Department announced it had found two 10-year-olds working at a McDonald's in Louisville, Kentucky, sometimes until 2 a.m. What are the new state laws being proposed? Over the last 2 years, at least 10 states have introduced or enacted laws to change the rules governing teenage work requirements. In 2022, New Hampshire and New Jersey passed laws extending the hours teenagers could work. New Hampshire lawmakers also relaxed rules for busing tables where alcohol is served, allowing 14-year-olds now to do it, down from the previous minimum of 15 years old. Excuse me. New Jersey lawmakers bumped up the number of hours teens can work during the summer to 40 hours a week for 14 and 15-year-olds and 50 for 16 and 17-year-olds. Conservatives and business excuse me, what's going on here? Conservatives and business groups have long objected to youth employment restrictions, and they're behind the new bills today. Also, keep in mind that the GOP is also trying to lower the minimum age to get married. Some conservatives have long seen child labor laws as government overreach, dictating rules for minors that should be left up to individual families. Others simply oppose most forms of government regulation, and still others see youth labor restrictions as an unnecessary barrier at the time when companies are struggling to hire workers. Here's a novel idea: pay people properly, treat people like human beings. Stop saying we're a family here and treating them worse than your worst enemy. Conservative billionaire Charles Koch and his late brother David have long used their fortunes to support rolling back child labor restrictions. In 1980, David ran for vice president on the Libertarian Party ticket and pledged to abolish child labor laws, income taxes, and Medicare. So keep them poor, force everybody to work. See, this is why it's important to be educated, and especially to learn history. We have gotten so far and so deep into capitalism and ensuring that the rich stay rich that we forget why child labor laws were enacted in the first place. We forget about children being in coal mines. We forget about children being maimed and injured in factories and being severely underpaid and severely overworked, that children took on such hefty work schedules that they did not become educated, therefore they could not climb the corporate ladder. And so all you have are these drones that are trained in one particular set of skills that you got them for life, because what else are they going to do? What else can they do? You know, no different than when you used to have the company towns or company cities, where your whole paycheck went right back to the company because you couldn't go grocery shopping outside of the city, and the cities were all the way in the middle of nowhere. So even if you wanted to drive off, but I guess, and I digress. Now, unfortunately, I must make you aware that Cop City has been funded.
After 15 consecutive hours of dissenting public comment,
The council has decided to fund Cop City after all. For updates from Atlanta and on the Cop City project, please follow my friend here at Scallywag Mag.
I'm not going to say color me shocked because I'm not. When I saw a video of SWAT teams going to arrest those that were putting together the protest against Cop City, I knew that they were going to fund it. I knew that they were going to fund it. And you're going to have this training facility that's going to do everything but train these cops to protect the actual public. Well, the non-pale public, they're not going to protect. Now, we know top of the news is the current Trump indictment. And the proceedings will go forth tomorrow. I'll keep you all updated as much as I can. So if you do not have notifications on and you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure that you do. If you're not, check back in to the tab marked news updates tomorrow. But DeSantis is, even though he's saying that this indictment is egregious, you know, he has to posture for the people, he's gaining a new following. Take a look.
Good morning. So Ron DeSantis has been hot on the campaign trail out there talking about Make America Florida. So over the weekend, I collected a couple tidbits of news regarding Florida so that you can know what Make America Florida really means. Let's start off with the group of Nazis that was campaigning for Ron DeSantis right outside of Disney World. Did you see that? They had all their little flags out, but it was adorable that right next to their swastika, they could put up their Ron DeSantis 2024 flag. Really hits home with the messaging, huh, Ron? And our Nazi problem has nothing on the fact that Florida is now the #1 state in America for foreclosures. Local Central News affiliate WESH 2 is reporting Florida had the most foreclosures of any state in America for the month of May. So congratulations to everybody that moved here during COVID and bought an overpriced house that you can't afford now because the interest rates went up. Because that 1,200 square foot house that you bought for $350,000 ain't worth it. And things are going to get much worse because now that the pandemic era emergency programs like mortgage forbearance are over, this is nothing. So congratulations to all the Republicans that moved here during COVID. You're about to lose your life savings because you wanted to own the lib. Alas, when Ron DeSantis says, "Make America Florida," this is what he means. Nazis and foreclosures. As far as the eye can see, this place is a shithole. Literally, the only thing that keeps me in Florida is my parents and Walt Disney World.
Now, is that really what you want, GOP? Because we know how much y'all love to pretend to be broke billionaires, but do you really want to just be broke? We're going to take a quick pause for the cause, and we're going to jump into all things Trump and Trump indictment and break down some things for you. After the ad, pay close attention to the very first video after the ad. I think it's going to bring you some joy on this Monday.
I don't dance, I just float, 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 float. I don't dance, I just float, 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 float. I just float. I'm light as a feather, I'm light as a feather. Yeah, baby, I float. It's hard to look at my resume and not find a reason to toast. She throwing that thing in a circle, making it viral. I might just elope. Say, listen.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Fani Willis has put together her case, and on July 31st, Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, Mark Meadows will all be indicted in
Yes, yes, you heard that. And I did get confirmation that the police are putting together a security plan to make sure, no riots, no crazed protests happen, and everybody can be safe and sound when it goes down. Talk about a hot indictment summer. I love this for him. I love this for him. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving person or group of people. So, because all the indictments are coming down, the conservative GOP, former and current MAGA hats, are losing their shit. They are so nervous because they know how deeply in bed with Trump they are, and they know how they've broken the law. Now, DeSantis, he can try to say that he's not nervous, but he's already got lawsuits that he's facing because he tried to mirror and up the ante as to what Trump was doing in the White House down in Florida. You thought we didn't catch that, Ronnie Ron? But Miss I Want to Be Trump's VP is really, really pushing the envelope, and she is shaking in her boots. Because now Marjorie Taylor Greene has called for the defunding of Jack Smith. Think I'm joking? Take a look.
Do you want to see what abject terror looks like? It looks like this. This is exactly what it looks like. Because not only is Jack Smith investigating the Mar-a-Lago issue, he's investigating January 6th. And Sporkfoot McKeespies just found out that they have a log of 10 members of Congress that attended Trump's meeting to put pressure on Mike Pence to decertify the election, which he has no legal right to do. They were trying to overthrow the government. I love this for her.
I'd like to announce that I'm writing an appropriations rider to defund Jack Smith's special counsel, his office, and the investigation. This is a weaponized government attempt to take down the top political enemy and leading presidential candidate of the United States, Donald J. Trump. We cannot allow the government to be weaponized for political purposes. I'd also like to ask all of my colleagues to join me in this effort. We have to use the power of appropriations to stop the weaponization of government, especially in light that we know that there are others who are guilty of true crimes. Never forget that former Secretary of State and Senator Hillary Clinton had classified documents on Anthony Weiner's laptop, who was convicted of sexting a minor, inappropriate pictures. This is not how classified documents should be handled. There should have been an investigation done into that. Don't forget Joe Biden's documents that are sitting in his garage next to his Corvette where the door opens and closes. America sees this for exactly what it is, and we will not allow it to stand. I yield back the remainder of my time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Imagine trying to weaponize the government while claiming that the government has been weaponized against the top leading presidential candidate. No. And then she threw in, what about Hillary? And the documents were on Weiner's computer. So wouldn't that mean that Weiner was not handling classified documents properly? And then were doors open and closed? Were doors do what doors do? But you're not going to talk about the documents that Trump had in the poo-poo place. But how quickly they forget that just like the Attorney General with the mugshot, it's Republicans that have investigated him. It's people he appointed that are at the head of this. And they take their job seriously. They don't want to be censured. They don't want to be disbarred. They don't want their credibility to be destroyed for careers that they have spent decades cementing themselves in it. He's not smart enough to have put anything in a casket. looking at where he's placed documents, he's not smart enough. He's not smart enough. He's cheap. He's cheap. And so are Ivana's children, who instead of paying for a proper burial for their mother, they took the cheapest route, basically free compared to what her funeral should have cost if they would have fulfilled her final wishes so that they could pocket the rest of their inheritance. But for those of y'all that are still wondering why Trump has support, most of us already know. But here you go.
I'm still sick in bed, so I have to do it like this. Remember back in 2016 when we were told that economic anxiety made white people vote for Trump? We all knew that was false, and there were subsequent studies proving that narrative false. The truth was that white working class people voted for Trump because they were afraid of losing their social status. He gave them groups and demographics to look down upon, and that's what they really wanted. Fast forward to 2023, Trump now openly admits that hate and cruelty is what energizes his base.
Critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes. People go like that. Talk about transgender. Everyone goes crazy. Who would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was?
He is proud to have figured it out. Keep serving up bigotry and they will let you get away with anything. Insurrection. SA. Classified documents in the bathroom.
What did I tell you last night? What did I tell you last night? He's going to run a campaign on what conservatives hate the most. He's not going to do anything that's going to benefit anyone outside of himself and his family. He is going to, because he's stupid, he thinks that by running for president, he truly believes that he will win again, especially with everybody throwing their name into the pot to split the vote. Because that's the only reason he won before, is because the vote was split. All these random candidates that people could vote for in different states, and people, love to have that protest vote, and that protest vote landed us with this debacle. But as long as he gives them the okay to hate someone else and feel as if they have the moral superiority, they will let him do anything. He could literally pour gasoline from coast to coast all over the United States and set it on fire, and they will still proclaim him their Messiah. To the point where they'll call for a civil war as a member of the government.
United States Representative Clay Higgins may be calling for civil war in America. Very, very concerning words posted by Clay Higgins, U.S. Representative from Louisiana, who posted this on Twitter in response to the indictments filed against Trump last week. Now, if you need a primer on Clay Higgins, he's a federal lawmaker from Louisiana who became famous recently for assaulting a peaceful activist during a press conference. So what do these words mean? Well, it's pretty much a detailed dog whistle. The letter R next to POTUS stands for real, and it indicates that Clay Higgins believes that Donald Trump is in fact right now the real president of the United States. The word 1/50th K refers to military maps. We know that because the military uses maps that are in 1 to 50,000 scale. And know your bridges is an indication to his followers that they should be ready for action. So that's what Clay Higgins here did. An elected representative of the United States Congress who swore to uphold the Constitution and protect the citizens of the United States, sending a message that could have grave consequences. And the GOP is absolutely silent. Not a word of condemnation, not a call for a vote to censure, nothing. The fact that a man like this, who has headlined at events by the Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters and serves as a representative of the American people, is allowed to work in the halls of Congress after writing words like the ones you just saw, should tell every American everything we need to know about the state of democracy in our country today.
you get people like this that will be so brazen to call for another civil war. The South will rise again because they were taught that it wasn't the Civil War, it was the war of northern aggression. And they're not taught that the South actually completely lost. The South fell. It never rose. It's still trying to rise from the ashes. This is the culmination of racism and poor education and glorifying the worst parts of a country's history because they fantasized about this so much, and now they want to be the great hero that goes down in the record books because they think war is easy. All of the little war movies make it seem like it's just a walk in the park. It's just like our 9 to 5. We can just go from 9 to 5 and have a little war and then come home and get cozy and then go have a little war and then come back. And as much as they love the Second Amendment, they are nowhere near a well-regulated or well-trained militia. The well-regulated and well-trained militia is the United States military. But go off. These are the same people who believe that military personnel will break ranks to fight alongside of them, as if that's how any of this works. But Trump supporters are already doing their thing down in Florida. Let's take a look.
So Trump's arraignment is tomorrow in a federal courthouse in Miami, Florida. And Trump supporters, they're already lining up. Let's check in with them, shall we?
Trump! We lost Trump! We lost Trump! We lost Trump! Yeah!
Trump 2024 and
Trump 2024! Trump 2024! Trump 2024! Trump 2024! Trump 2024!
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
And then how do we...
There we go.
How about this? Hell, I gotta get a picture with him.
Yep.
All right, Trump 2024 and he won again.
We stand with Trump anyway. Trump not alone. We always stand with Trump.
No, yo te aviso. Espérate que te están tomando una foto.
A lot of my family blood spilled for this country. I'm not going to let it go to waste. I'm not. I refuse. I did 19 years here as a federal agent in Dade County. I'm just not going to let this country go to waste. And right now it's going to waste. Well, if he gets indoctrinated, January 6th is going to look like a playground. It's going to look like a playground. From the inside voices that I hear from all the militias and everything else, it's going to be a playground. But if they want to fight, bring it.
Indoctrinated? I think the word you were looking for is indicted. And you're saying if he gets indicted, it's going to make January 6th look like a playground. I'm confused though. I thought January 6th was a false flag FBI operation committed by Antifa. Do I have my conspiracy right? I don't know. I can't keep up anymore, but it's okay. We'll definitely keep an eye out on Miami tomorrow for Trump's arraignment for any sign of Antifa.
Dog the discount bounty hunter. Indoctrination. Jeez. The saddest part are the immigrants, the people that Trump has been very vocal about not wanting in this country, although he's the descendant of immigrants. And he's been very vocal, especially recently, that he doesn't even want your children here. But it makes you feel superior to others. It makes you feel like you're in the good old white boys club, huh? You're not. Because once he gets your vote, that's all he cares about. That's all they all care about. But let's take a look at the support. Well, a little bit more of the support in the GOP.
Not a good look for the former president to have boxes in a bathroom.
I don't know. Is it a good picture to have boxes in a garage that opens up all the time? A bathroom door locks.
In order to illustrate how pathetic Kevin McCarthy's argument is, I'm going to show you guys how the lock on a bathroom door works. From the inside! That means if someone has top secret documents in their bathroom, the documents are only safe if someone's in there with them. So unless Donald Trump has security personnel pulling 8-hour shifts on the toilet, Kevin McCarthy's idea makes no sense. Although, considering Trump's catering preferences, I guess 8 hours in the bathroom is not that far-fetched.
Yeah, Jim Jordan really is not okay.
He can classify and he can control access. He has the sole authority.
In this indictment, he states on at least one occasion that he did not declassify the information. When he's showing a document to somebody who doesn't have a security clearance, I might add, he says explicitly that it is classified. He didn't declassify it.
Dana, he has said time and time again he's declassified all this material. This is the most political thing I have ever seen. They have been out to get President. They're indicting President Trump on Tuesday for having material that he declassified that was protected by the Secret Service. And the people who are doing it is the administration, the Justice Department, from his opponent in the upcoming presidential election. I mean, this is as political as it gets. And frankly, Dana, it's part of a pattern. We've seen it time and time again with the president over the last 7 years. They try one thing, then they try another. They've continued to go after him. And I think anyone with common sense can see that. It says, and the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, has the ability to classify and control access to information. That's what the Constitution and the court have said. So you can't obstruct when you can't obstruct when there's no underlying crime.
He is not the president of the United States.
That is the fundamental flaw.
And you're just taking
when he
him
was
at his
president,
word.
he declassified the material.
He says point blank.
He
says point blank on tape, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't. He says in his own words, it's on tape as part of this indictment that he did not declassify the material. Therefore, it is classified.
Saying he could have. Saying he could have is not the same as saying he didn't.
He said now
he
I
has
can't.
declassified this material. He said that now he can't, right, because he's not president now, but when he was president, he did declassify. He said that.
Which means that what he was holding was classified.
No, not if he declassified it when he was president of the United States, for goodness sake.
But he's saying point blank in this audio tape that he did not declassify it. What you're saying just doesn't make sense on its face.
This is what this truly is, Dana, is an affront to the rule of law. It's an affront to consistent application of the law. You had Secretary Clinton, who had classified material on a server. She was not president of the United States. She was Secretary Clinton. You have that happen. Nothing happens to her. When you have two people who do the same thing, and one has the standard that I've talked about, but the only one who gets indicted is the Republican. The only one who gets indicted is the one who was actually president, who did it the right way. Oh my goodness. That is what the American people see.
So I see we're now at the point where Republicans have completely abandoned the very concept of logic in their blind rage to rush to Trump's defense. Now, so as not to bury the lead here, I want to read part of the unsealed indictment against Trump. Quote, in July 2021, at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey, during an audio-recorded meeting with a writer, a publisher, and 2 members of his staff, none of whom possessed a security clearance, Trump showed and described a plan of attack that Trump said was prepared for him by the Department of Defense and a senior military official. Trump told the individuals that the plan was highly confidential and secret. Trump also said, as president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't, but this is still a secret. Now, I want to make sure I'm being extra clear, because apparently words are hard. When Trump said that something is, quote, highly confidential and, quote, secret, that inherently cannot mean that it is also declassified, considering those concepts are opposite from one another. It's like if Jim Jordan said that his coffee was very hot, that inherently means it cannot be cold, what with hot and cold being the opposites. When Trump said, as president, I could have declassified it, that means that he didn't. And the way I can tell is that I've spoken English for my entire life. That's how words work. You don't say, I could have declassified it to mean that you did declassify it. You say that to mean that you didn't declassify it. I would say that I was surprised that Jim Jordan was ignoring some pretty basic tenets of the English language, but then again, ignoring things does seem to be Jim Jordan's forte. I want to note, too, that despite Jim Jordan constantly claiming that Donald Trump had the sole authority to declassify, that's not true. Donald Trump, when he was president, had the authority to begin the process of declassification for certain documents, but there was still an actual process that had to be followed, and there were restrictions that were put in place that prevented certain information from ever being declassified, such as, for example, information related to nuclear weapons and human sources. But regardless, that argument is moot anyway because the crimes that Trump committed happened when he was no longer president. When he retained those documents, when he shared the contents of those documents, he was a private citizen. And Jim Jordan would say, well, he already declassified them, so they were no longer secret anyway. And to that, I would refer back to the literal recording of Trump saying that the information he was sharing was, quote, highly confidential and secret, and that, quote, as president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't. Again, Jim Jordan is trying to make an argument that Donald Trump himself already undermined. That bus has left the station. To claim that Trump declassified everything when we already have irrefutable proof that he didn't is a testament to the fact that the Trump defenders have no leg to stand on here. You gotta love, too, how when Jordan is confronted about that fact, all he can conjure up is that Trump already said he declassified everything, and if Donald Trump, the world's premier authority on all things true and factual, says something, well, then it must be true.
Number two, do you have evidence that the president, when he was president, now former president, actually declassified these documents before he took them?
I go on the president's word, and he said he did.
Well, there you go. If Trump said it, then it must be true. After all, it's not like he's ever told a lie before. He's told 30,000. Jim then goes on to say this.
What this truly is, Dana, is an affront to the rule of law. It's an affront to consistent application of the law.
That holding Trump accountable for committing crimes is somehow an affront to the rule of law. Because, God forbid, the DOJ charge someone for committing crimes. What Jordan is trying to say is that because no one else who'd mishandled classified documents was charged by the DOJ, that Trump shouldn't have been charged either. But here's the thing. No one else who mishandled classified documents did what Trump did. Not Hillary Clinton, not Mike Pence, not Joe Biden, not George W. Bush. Sure, they all mishandled classified documents, albeit not nearly as many as Trump did, but the difference is that they actually cooperated with law enforcement after it was found out. Trump didn't. He ignored requests for documents to be returned, he defied subpoenas, he instructed his lawyer to lie in the written attestation, he then admittedly shared that still classified information with unauthorized individuals. Remember, Trump wasn't charged for any of the 197 documents that he returned to the archives. He was charged for the ones that he had retained. And beyond that, he was also charged with conspiracy to obstruct justice for keeping the documents from the grand jury, charged with withholding a document or record for moving boxes of classified documents so that attorneys wouldn't be able to find them, charged with corruptly concealing a document or record for attempts to hide boxes of classified documents from attorneys, charged with concealing a document in a federal investigation for causing a false certificate to be submitted to the FBI, charged with a scheme to conceal for hiding Trump's continued possession of those materials from the FBI and the grand jury, charged with false statements and representations for lying to the FBI and grand jury about the results of the search at Mar-a-Lago. So the reason that Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Mike Pence weren't charged with the same crimes is that they didn't commit them. And there's no rule that if you charge a Republican, you also have to charge a Democrat, much to the dismay of someone like Jim Jordan. So while it's infuriating to hear someone like Jim Jordan carry on with the least logical arguments known to man, in a way it's helpful because it shows just how little defense they actually have.
But we know the GOP will continue to distract. But just in case you forgot, let's recap on the Trump timeline real quick before we deep dive into the rest of this.
Okay, let's work from the premise that Donald Trump is completely innocent. Let us begin from the starting point that Trump is a completely innocent billionaire who is an amazing president, a brilliant businessman, and is being unfairly targeted by an overzealous, corrupt Justice Department. Let's just say all of that is true, which I believe is what some people feel. If that is the case, then where are his lawyers? I don't mean the ex-OAN host supermodel he met at Mar-a-Lago or the ex-Bannon low-level defense lawyer he hired without meeting, both who are now in legal trouble themselves. I mean, where are the top-of-their-class Harvard Law School defense attorneys out of New York or Dallas or Miami or Los Angeles? I mean, this is a high-profile client, a Republican billionaire ex-president. Who wouldn't want to represent him? Especially if you're working from the premise that he is completely innocent and the subject of a gross overstep by the FBI, and there is endless proof that everything he's done is completely justified. Where is the crack legal team? Where are the firms charging thousands of dollars an hour? He should have the best legal minds in the country tripping over themselves to represent him. Where's the team put together from the Federalist Society lawyers? Leonard Leo and Donald Trump had a deal. They support him to become president, and they get to pick all of his justices, including the 3 Supreme Court picks. Being the frontrunner for the Republican nominee for president should give Trump first draft pick of any top-notch conservative lawyer he wants. So where are they? There was a period of time just after the 2020 election when he was represented by a great firm in New York, but they quit before they took his stolen election case to court. That's how we ended up with Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani. No one else would do it. Why not? Who doesn't want to represent the President of the United States? Especially if there's tons of evidence proving his case. Careers are made on such high-profile wins. So where are the conservative Republican bulldog defense attorneys? Where is Trump's Johnny Cochran saying if it doesn't fit, you must acquit? People represent guilty murderers all the time for profit and high-profile wins. Which lawyer turns away a rich, innocent, high-profile client? It's a legitimate question. Because no matter what you hear on TV or Truth Social or Facebook or from Trump himself about planted evidence and a corrupt FBI or declassified information, ask yourself, then where are the lawyers? Because if everything Trump and his defenders have said is true, then there would be a line around the block to represent him, but no one is there. So next time you go to defend him, ask yourself why no one who would make money from doing the same thing will take the job. Because I think that tells you everything you need to know.
Now for those comparing, doing the whataboutism, what about Hillary? What about Biden? What about Pence? What about this?
If Donald Trump had done what Joe Biden did here, what Mike Pence did here, when they found their classified documents, they gave them back. And there's no charges against Pence. There's not going to be charges against Biden. The difference here is what Trump did to try and cover up what he did in the first place. As is so often the case, it's not the underlying crime. It's the interference. It's the cover-up that gets folks in trouble. And they have him with significant evidence, it looks like, as to obstruction. So I think the chances of a guilty verdict are fairly high, and the chances of real jail time are pretty high.
And when you say real jail time, how long might that be?
Well, at his age, it doesn't really make much difference, right? I think the maximum, if you add up all the math, the maximum could be over 500 years. The minimum would be 100 years.
Yeah. So can we stop the what about? Now let's look at where he kept the documents. It's like he was putting together an episode of Dora the Explorer around Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, class, everybody gather round. We're going to do this together. Where were the documents located in Mar-a-Lago? Very interesting, but they seem to be all over the fucking place. So you got Trump's office down here, the family suite over here, the white and gold ballroom, which I'm assuming is some type of entertainment area that people frequent, the lake room, the storage area. Now, mind you, that storage area down there, they detailed in the indictment about all of the access it had directly to the pool area of Mar-a-Lago, where anybody could have gone through and opened those doors into locations that were housing classified documents. They were literally all over the fucking place. How was anybody keeping track of this? How do they know that people didn't access this information? I don't know. This is very interesting.
And let's not forget what we went over yesterday. And if you missed yesterday's episode, make sure you go back and watch it. A lot of good information in there. His goose is cooked. But here's one thing that I think people are forgetting about. He's being indicted on federal charges in Florida. Now, what's the one thing he's been not giving up that would bring additional court cases his way? I'll give you a moment. Let me give you a hint. E. Jean Carroll, to name one. If you guessed he hasn't been giving up his DNA, he will tomorrow.
DNA will be collected as well. You guys, I ran and looked it up, and yes, the Florida statutes, they do collect DNA when you're arrested. You know who else is going to want a copy of that DNA? It would be a certain E. Jean Carroll.
But not just E. Jean. She's not the only one that said that he made those type of advances towards them. And just imagine the floodgates. Picture it. Remember the Bill Cosby trial where all these women were springing up from everywhere? It's going to be worse than that. Especially after his comments about, you're rich enough, da-da-da-da-da, you can just grab them by the... Wonder how many women he's grabbed by the... Now, we have some additional information on Judge Cannon. And calm down, calm down. You're going to be happy about this news, okay? You're going to be happy about it.
Okay, before everybody gets so out of sorts about Judge Cannon, let's stop and talk about how she's probably going to have to recuse herself. Meet Joy Vance. She used to be a prosecutor, and she's always on TV giving legal commentary, and she used to work in the same exact appellate court. Now, we already know that Judge Cannon has been overruled by appeals in the 11th Circuit when they took the entire documents case away from her and basically was like, yeah, you're done here. Although it is not currently clear whether Judge Cannon is only going to be presiding over the initial arraignment or if she will be the permanently assigned judge to this case. But if she is the permanently assigned judge, she will most likely have to recuse herself. And if she doesn't, it's going to get appealed to the next court that overruled her multiple times when she was handling this case earlier. So I hope that gives you guys a little bit of insight. Y'all remember when I told you not to worry about Judge Aileen Cannon and her shitty ass rulings in that court? Would I lie to you, baby? Would I lie to you? You know that I'm right. I told you I wouldn't tell you not to worry about this bitch if I was worried about her. Although Trump's case was randomly assigned to Judge Cannon, the arraignment is going to be held by Magistrate Judge Jonathan Goodman. According to the Miami Herald, Cannon has not been taken off the case, but the fact that it has been widely reported that she already mishandled this case in the past, it is not going to be this bitch that presides over the case the entirety of the trial. I can go ahead and assure you of that. In fact, I already told you not to worry about it. So, but yeah, as of this hour, Trump will be arraigned tomorrow by Magistrate Judge Jonathan Goodman at the Miami federal courthouse. So chill the fuck out. It's all gonna be okay. The Justice Department and Jack Smith in cases like this have 100% conviction rate. Anyways, I just wanted to pass that along.
So calm down. He's not going to get a slap on the wrist. She's not going to be able to, do some finagling and get him off the hook for this. And I'm pretty sure in the back of his mind, he thought that was what was going to happen, forgetting that, after she did what she did the last time, another court was like, she messed this up. Now, we know that Trump let go. Well, he didn't let go of. 2 of his attorneys quit right after the indictment. Well, shortly after the indictment was revealed. And we know he's been fervently looking for an attorney. At this point, he may end up maybe with some public defenders. I don't know. I don't even know if they would take it. But here's an update on the whole attorney situation.
We know that 2 of the lawyers who had been representing Donald Trump resigned Friday after the indictment against Trump became public. But who's going to be representing him now? It appears that Todd Blanche is the latest future former Trump lawyer. Trump said this on Truth Social. For purposes of fighting the greatest witch hunt of all time, now moving to the federal courts, I will be represented by Todd Blanche, Esquire, and a firm to be named later. Trump did have kind words for his latest former lawyers. I want to thank Jim Trusty and John Rowley for their work, but they were up against a very dishonest, corrupt, evil, and, quote, sick group of people, the likes of which has not been seen before. Blanche is a white-collar criminal defense lawyer. He was most recently at Cadwalader, Wickersham, and Taft, one of the top law firms in the country. A couple of lawyers who turned down the role, David Marcus, successfully defended former Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum against allegations he lied to the FBI. He also represented Hillary Clinton in Trump's failed lawsuit against her. Another is Benedict Kuhn, who is well known in Miami-Dade County. He represents people charged in state and federal courts on corruption cases. Being a lawyer for Trump is known to be quite challenging. We'll see how long he lasts. He's also heading up the Manhattan defense, though, so he's already got some experience with Trump.
Now, given that he's coming from a top law firm, I wonder how long before he tenders his resignation, because that would be one hell of a career to take. You made your way into a top law firm, and you're really going to tank it for Trump, and more than likely not even get paid. Now, I know a lot of Trump sycophants are like, Nara said this was okay. Well, Nara has weighed in by updating their website. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
Thanks for this comment, and thanks for pointing this out. NARA does have a frequently asked questions page about the Presidential Records Act, posted 2 days ago. Let's take a look. If you're actually interested in learning about this, stay tuned. If you're only interested in what Kash Patel says, then go watch him. This was posted in direct response to large numbers of queries about presidential records. First, how long does a former president have to go through their papers to determine what to retain? Answer: they should do it by the end of their term, not afterwards. They certainly don't get 2 years. How does NARA store the documents? In the past, former presidents would fund, build, endow, and donate to NARA, a traditional presidential library. Every president through Second Bush has done this. Obama has notified NARA that he won't be doing that, and Trump hasn't said anything about it. Typically, NARA will rent a facility near where they think a presidential library might be and transfer records there, still under the control of NARA. After Obama, NARA won't be doing that anymore, in large part because so many files and documents are digitized now. How are documents classified as presidential records or personal records? You can read that first paragraph on what personal records are, certainly not nuclear secrets of the United States and other countries, nor their defensive capabilities. And it also requires that all documentary materials be categorized as presidential records or personal records upon their creation or receipt and be filed separately. The president does not have discretion to categorize a presidential record as a personal record. Let me say that again. The president does not have discretion to categorize a presidential record as a personal record. This explains why President Clinton was able to classify as personal records tape recordings between him and his historian for a future book. Those were personal records, not presidential records, and they fit the definition of personal records. Did President Obama take presidential records to Chicago after he left office? No. Here's the rest of the answer for you to read, but in short, NARA rented facilities near Chicago and kept documents there, the presidential records, and NARA retained possession of them. Are photocopies of original records, either classified or unclassified, still covered under the PRA? Short answer, yes. Did NARA provide archival assistance to the Trump administration during the transition of records at the end of his administration? Yes. Here's the definition of personal records again. There's the full definition again, and keep in mind, presidential records cannot be classified as personal records. And finally, here's the definition of presidential records under the Presidential Records Act. You can find the whole document simply by searching NARA and Presidential Records Frequently Asked Questions. It should pop up. The notion that any of the 31 documents referenced in Jack Smith's indictment against President Trump are personal records is ridiculous. They are not the kind of documents that a president could designate as personal records in the first place. Trump didn't, and hasn't even claimed that he did. The MAGA crowd will clearly try and come up with anything to excuse what Trump has done, but this ain't it.
So what arguments do they have? Oh, that's right. They don't have any arguments left. That's why they're deflecting. That's why we're getting a whole lot of what about isms? What about Pence? What about Biden? What about Hillary's emails? When Trump was in office, Congress was Republican held. They did investigations. They had to tuck tail and admit there was no criminality found. But now all of a sudden, what about the fact that your boy is a criminal? Now, the biggest question that people have, can he still run? Short answer, yes. Should he? No. If by some whim, because everybody's tossing their hat into the presidential campaign for 2024, if we have another vote split situation and he somehow, some way gets in, once convicted, first of all, it does not look good. It didn't look good when he had international warrants on him as POTUS, but it definitely will not look good, and the United States will not be respected by anyone globally. So it would have to be immediate articles of impeachment set forth, and he would have to be removed from office. But let a duo of attorneys break this down for you. Take a listen.
Can Trump still run for president if he's convicted of a felony?
First, keep in mind that thus far, Trump has only been charged with felonies. The process has just begun and it'll be a long time before there's any outcome one way or the other.
But the answer to the question is yes. Felonies don't prevent anyone from running for president or serving as president.
Theoretically, someone could be president from a jail cell. The law really only requires 4 things to be president, each of which Trump satisfies.
That said, there's one main caveat. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment disqualifies anyone from holding office if they engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States.
Back in 2021, Trump was impeached by the House for 1 count of inciting an insurrection on January 6th, but then he was acquitted by the Senate.
Currently, none of the crimes that Trump is charged with legally involve insurrection or rebellion. But if you look back at Section 3, it doesn't say you actually have to be charged or convicted, just that you engaged in an insurrection.
And one nonprofit group has already vowed to use Section 3 to sue if Trump wins the next election.
But the reality is, all of this is unclear. Section 3 was mostly used back in Civil War times to prevent Confederate politicians from gaining office.
It hasn't been applied in modern times and never for a president. Overall, if Section 3 ever becomes an issue, it will likely be escalated up to the Supreme Court for them to decide. Back in 2021, Trump was impeached by the House for 1 count of inciting an erection.
So there you have it, folks. And let's not forget, he may be disqualified from running because the DOJ and Jack Smith are not done with him yet. They have several investigations going on with him, and he's being indicted on one portion of that investigation. The January 6th, it's coming on down. And the indictment that is impending in Georgia for tampering with an election. Speaking of which, let's run that beautiful footage again to close out the show. Make sure if you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and as always, check out the links in the description of the video. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Fani Willis has put together her case. And on July 31st, Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham, Mark Meadows will all be indicted in Georgia for the fake election or electors trying to overturn that election. You heard me right. Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, and of course, Lindsey, baby, you finna get them sugar pants toe up, Graham, will be indicted on July 31st of this year. Fani Willis has put out a memo stating she wants the downtown area in that corridor to be cleared of no one being there but armed guards. Yes, people. My prediction at the beginning of the year all came true. I told you, this man will be made an example of what not to do when you become president of the United States. You had no reason to do the things you did, but you did them. And you're going to pay. And karma is raining down on all of these Republicans. Kevin McCarthy, you better start worrying, brother. Because Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, all the rest of you MAGA Republicans, you guys better start worrying. Because Donald Trump is going to drop dime on all of you. He's going to try to plea his way for lesser charges if he gives up every single person who were involved in the January 6th insurrection, in the Georgia fake electors, and Florida with those documents. It has been a great last couple of weeks because we're going to get justice in this country. And justice looks like all of these fuckers who tried to take over this country by force and by lies and deception will be brought to justice. And there's no turning back. They are all going to fall. This is what happens when fascism meets justice in the United States of America. And we're going to all watch it in 4K. I've been saying this on every video I put out. Donald Trump and his cohorts will be brought to justice once and for all. Thank you all for listening, and it gets better and better.